Welcome to a Rice University digital media production. For more information about us, please visit our website at www.rice.edu.
Good afternoon. Welcome. It's really great to see this level of energy and excitement as we inaugurate our new Rice Center for Engineering Leadership. My name is Mark Embry. I'm pleased to know many of you here. I'm a professor of computational and applied mathematics, the new director of our Rice Center for Engineering Leadership. This new Center for Engineering Leadership aims to complement the excellent technical education for which Rice Engineering has long been known with a greater challenge for our students, a challenge to answer the call to lead careers of significance, of substance, to make a difference in our world. We're grateful for our alums, Ann and John Doerr, who are with us today, for their kindred spirits and our alumni community for making this wonderful opportunity possible. Maybe you've already become familiar with some of the programs that RCEL has begun to start. Maybe you've taken one of our short courses we've offered, participated in our NG314 RCEL seminar, short talks on big problems this semester. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of an idea of what RCEL is all about. We'll look forward to introducing it to you over the coming months as you hear more and more of our programs spinning up. It's an amazing opportunity to transform engineering education at Rice and far beyond. Some sociologists tell us that your generation is what they call a civic generation, perhaps the greatest generation our country has seen since the generation that won World War II. And it's a good thing. Engineers solve problems. Our country has many of them. Our world has many problems. And we need our engineers to step up in a profound way to address them. This new center that we inaugurate today is a special opportunity to call you all to do more, to take that excellent technical education and to step up, to lead careers not doing the obvious thing, getting out of your comfort zones, taking on risky challenges, leading careers of difference. When President David Leebron arrived at Rice in 2004, he began a call for conversation that developed into a vision for the second century. Leadership has played a fundamental component in this vision. Indeed, it's one of the core values of our institution. Now, here at Rice, we have a wonderful community of cooperating leaders. Of course, Leadership Rice, Professor Michael Lindsay's program for the study of leadership and sociology, and now our Center for Engineering Leadership, working together to help develop President Leebron's vision for leadership as a core value here at Rice. I'm delighted for his interest in our program, for the fact that he's here to introduce our guest speaker, President Leebron.
Thanks very much, Mark. This is impressive. I've never seen this room this full without a controversy. So I'm hoping there's nothing that either John or I doesn't know about. Welcome to the inaugural celebration of the Rice Center for Engineering Leadership. This is really a pivotal development at Rice, and I want to emphasize not just for our School of Engineering. It is really fundamental to the way that we think about our university and the purpose of our education. As Mark said, our role is to make a difference in the world, and we do that in many ways. You may have heard the expression, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And I know that many of you are hoping that what happens at Rice stays at Rice. But we think about that quite differently. What we hope is that what happens at Rice goes around the globe. And that is part, I think, of the statement of this new center. Our research, our education, the things that happen here, both in the substance of what we do and the people who we educate, we hope will leave here and have an impact around the world. And we hope also, frankly, that Rice will become identified with that impact. That means thinking about how to design our education for the impact that it will have, not only on our students here at Rice, but beyond. Teaching people not only to be creative and to generate great ideas, but how to move those ideas forward to having an impact. And that is why we are so grateful to John and Ann Doerr for making this new venture possible. And that brings me to my next task, which is to introduce John. And I want to begin actually by just something that happened today, which is I actually happened to run into John just as he arrived on the campus. And I was struck that the first place that he was going to visit on this campus was the room in Lovett College where he lived as an undergraduate. I don't think it was because he forgot something that he wanted to pick up there. But this provided me with two data points, because I remember the time when I was in college, and one night somebody knocked on the door, and it was a guy who, at the time, I thought looked pretty old. Which is to say, younger than I am now. And he had come back to visit where he had lived as an undergraduate. And it reminds us of the importance of what we're talking about here today, because there is something so special that happens to us, or can happen to us as students, especially during our undergraduate years, that makes us want to come back and revisit that and capture a sense of remembrance, a sort of reinvigoration. And it's our duty every day to instill in our education the things that cause people to think of that time in their lives as the times that formed them and created the opportunities which we hope they have exploited. John graduated from Rice in 1973 in electrical engineering, earned a master's 2 years later, and then, 1 year later, and 2 years after that, an MBA from Harvard. He accomplished a lot at Rice, including starting and then selling a graphic software company and actually finding another electrical engineering student who was eventually willing to marry him. He is a partner in the legendary venture capital firm of Kleiner Perkins, Caulfield & Byers. He has been behind such firms as Compaq, Intuit, Netscape, Lotus, Sun Microsystems, Amazon, and Google, and we'll be happy afterwards to take any complaints you may have about the functioning of any of those. John never stops looking toward the future, inventing and determining the future, not just waiting for it to happen. In recent years, he and Kleiner Perkins have focused on green technologies, and Ann also has spent much of her time on environmental issues. In technology, John is now focused on what he calls the third wave of technology, the first being the personal computer, the second the internet, and the third being social and mobile networking. An example of his latest investments in this area is Zynga. One publication named him as the venture capitalist with the most clout in the internet economy. He is also politically active and engaged. At the president's request, he joined the Economic Recovery Advisory Board. Getting 15 minutes with John Doerr can perhaps mean the difference between opportunity and failure for a visionary venture. So let me not take any more time away from what you have with him. Please join me in welcoming John Doerr.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is this mic on and working? Hello? Great. So my purpose in the next 45 minutes that we have together is to be of use to you. And so my hope is that we can have this be an extremely interactive session. I have a few thoughts I want to share with you about leadership, but first I would like to take 5 minutes and put on the board or on the Elmo machine the topics and questions that are of interest to you. So I think we have runners with microphones right now. I believe some of this is being broadcast to another room. And what I'll say to start things out is we can cover anything you want, but since the mission here is to understand leadership and how it can affect your lives and our world, a good topic might be questions around leadership. Another might be, I'm going to call it the next big thing, what's happening in technology. For those of you who are students, we might want to go into some discussion about careers or career advice that you may have. I'm very happy to dig into, say, policy issues, like why a couple of crazy Texas oil companies tried to change the laws in California. We can talk about global issues, global concerns, and really anything else that's on your mind. So if we're ready to go with the mics, put your hand in the air, please. Somebody will bring a mic to you, and we'll get some of your questions up on the board. We got a mic there. We got a mic there. How about one on this side? Would you recognize him, please? Here we go. Just tell me your name, affiliation, and what's on your mind. And somebody else with a question, put your hands in the air now. We'll get a mic to you. We keep this going.
Hi, my name is Marcos. I'm a graduate student, a professional master's by engineering.
Yep.
All right. My question is your view on the startup visa. How is that going to be passed? And the EB6, I think, that is going to come into legislation.
Repeat for me. I can't quite hear my view on what?
The startup visa.
Startup visa bill.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put that under policy. Great question. Another question, please. Who's got a mic? Yep.
Hello. My name is Chad Kong. I'm a senior mechanical engineer. And I know that a lot of the engineering societies on campus are represented here today. And do you have any visions or policies or philosophies that you would like to see being adopted by the engineering societies on campus to help support the role that RCEL will play?
Okay, I'm going to create a category called RICE and talk about the engineering societies. What role can they play in leadership development? Next person, please. Name?
Hi, I'm Norman Pai. I'm a senior electrical engineering engineer.
Yep.
Anyway. I was wondering what your take is on how social media is affecting search. I know companies like Google are dealing with this. So
very cool. I'm going to put that under the next big thing because I believe it is. Social media and search. Okay, another?
My name is Tony Castilleja. I'm a professional master's mechanical engineering student. I want to hear about your views about servant leadership and the opportunities that we have as engineers to solve the social problems of our day, specifically, outreach, engineering outreach in our community.
Okay, I'm going to put that down as social leadership and outreach. Next.
Hi. Tristan Clement, mechanical engineering student. I'd like to hear about your thoughts on, you're a big advocate of green technology, and what are your thoughts on oil companies and how they should proceed moving forward and deal with more carbon friendly.
Okay, so I think Tristan's mic doesn't work. I'll repeat the question, which is, what's the role that big oil companies are going to play in our move towards a low carbon or green economy? At least, what's your opinion, John? So I want to put that under a general category of green and talk about big oil. How's that? Next question.
And my name is
keep rolling.
Hi, I'm Andrew Owens. I'm a junior mechanical engineer, and I guess this goes under the next big thing, but I wanted to know what your thoughts are on nanotechnology and its ability to revolutionize technology.
Great question. Nanotech. Another one, please.
And my name is Kun Lu, and I'm a PhD student in the computation and applied mathematics. I'm just wondering, what is your definition of the leadership?
All right, how do you define leadership? I've had no questions yet from female RICE engineers. So of the next 3 questions, 2 have to be from females. Who's next? Okay, get a mic here. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you can answer this, but
Your name, please?
I'm Elizabeth Diaz. I'm a sophomore at Jones College, civil and environmental engineer.
I love Jones.
My main concern is to raise the standard of living of the people who are under the poverty line right now, but while still adhering to how do you raise the standard of living of those people who are going to start being consumers and still achieve sustainability and not worsen the situation that we currently have?
So how do we raise the standard of living in a sustainable way? We've got a couple billion more people who are coming on the world stage, and they want all the things that we want. Clean water, power, that's a great topic. Okay, another question. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm Chaitali Sengupta, RICE alum and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand your view on how entrepreneurship has changed. What would be your advice for new startups today as opposed to, say, 10 years ago?
Yeah, that's excellent. I'm going to create an entrepreneurship category. And go ahead with another question while I'm writing.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Juanis. I'm a bioengineering freshman at Jones.
Yep.
And my question is, what's the most important thing you learned at Rice?
Okay, that goes under Rice. Most important learning. Thank you for asking that. Another couple more questions, maybe?
Hi, my name is Frank. I'm a freshman in computer science, and I would like to know what you think about 3D, like display and interactions.
Okay, I'm going to put that under maybe technology. So 3D for displays and interactions. One more question.
Hello, my name is Joseph Young. I'm a fourth-year grad student in electrical and computer engineering. I have a question regarding policy. Do you think more technology companies will start lobbying Congress, and do you think those lobbying bodies will become as powerful as Petrochem, Farm, and Defense?
Technology lobbies, and are they going to get as important as big oil? I got big oil on my mind these days. There's a question down here up front.
Yeah, John, Brad Burke. What technologies do you think will solve the energy climate problems, and when do you think those technologies will work out?
Okay, I'll put that under green. The question, if you didn't hear it, was what technologies do I think are going to solve the climate and energy security independence problems? And God, I think that's a whole course, but I'll give it my best shot. I tell you what, I would like to speak to these in the context of having set the table around about 4 topics. And those 4 are what's going to matter next in your life, some unsolicited and maybe worthless career advice that I might give you. Beyond the career, how about values? What is the range of choices and a way to think about values, a framework? And then talk about leadership. Our purpose is applying leadership to the strong technology, education, and passion that you have to go address these kinds of problems in the world. And then offer you a little bit of unsolicited closing career advice. So if you could, the slides are up there. Let's leave those questions up. That'll be fine. The place to begin, I think, is with the what. And so this is directed particularly to the students here. And it has to do with what I think you should consider as you're deciding about life after Rice. And I think the most important thing to do is have a state of mind such that as you move on past Rice, what you're looking for is the ability to continue to learn and grow. That the compensation, either at the start or at the end of your career, is not what you should be trying to make the most of. And I suggest that in order to do that, you want to build a really strong foundation of experiences. Do things you might not imagine yourself doing for a long period of time. For me, that was to get out and sell, to advocate, to get people to use a product or a service. Move forward an idea, launch a product, and start to get experience working with and inspiring others, managing people. I think a great place to do this in building your career is to learn that from places that do it really well. I'm not advocating that you go build the rest of your life or career at Apple or GE or BP, but rather take a portion of your development and learn on their nickel, learn what they do well and what they don't. I also suggest, if it's inside of you, to then be open to and in fact pursue the possibility of swinging for the stands, I call it, joining your own startup when the time is right. And I don't think you have to do this right away. Out in Silicon Valley where I live, the students in the engineering school or the graduate school, they're all writing their plans for business plans and to go do startups. And I actually advise them not to do that unless they're the next Mark Zuckerberg. And then I want to talk with them. but I think a good thing to do is to learn from others on their ideas while you build your muscle and your skills. What that means is you're going to be interviewing a lot of places to get a lot of ideas. And I think the most important thing you can do in your senior year, if you stop there, or in your 5th year, if you're pursuing a professional master's, or as you complete your graduate work, is to interview. Network like crazy. Go meet all kinds of people in all kinds of situations and stay in touch with them. And while you're meeting these people, pay a particular attention to the following 2 things. The first is what it would be like for you to be there. And in particular, do you think you'd be working with really smart people that you would learn a lot from? Because remember, learning is the number one goal in developing your passion, happiness, and potential and power. The second thing is pay attention to the culture of the place you're working at, because culture matters a lot. Culture is an expression of the values of the place where you're going to spend most of your waking life. And there's quite a range of those values. I want to paint that picture for you because there's all sorts of value systems that work. Just to overly dramatize the difference of what I'm talking about, there's something I call the mercenary culture and the missionary culture, the mercenaries and the missionaries. And the contrasts are quite extreme. The mercenary organizations have a great deal of drive and paranoia. This is typified by one of my mentors, Andy Grove, who wrote a book called Only the Paranoid Survive. Well, my response to Andy is that paranoia is in fact a disease state. And at the other extreme, in a missionary culture, you'll find people with passion. And the power of passion is that you're drawn to something as opposed to being pushed by a kind of paranoia. Another dimension is opportunistic versus strategic. The difference between the missionaries and the mercenaries is that the mercenaries are always sprinting in a kind of short run for a goal, whereas the missionaries understand they're in a marathon, that this is a long run effort, a long march, if you will. The mercenaries obsess on competition, the missionaries on their clients, on the customers. The mercenaries can create a culture that I like to call an aristocracy of founders, where the founders, the whole world revolves around them, as opposed to a place where you have a meritocracy, and the best ideas come from without the team, and those teams can win. In one of these mercenary cultures, you'll tend to be more of a loner. There won't be the resources for you to develop with mentors or as parts of teams. The other thing I've seen is that in a mercenary culture, there'll be kind of an attitude of entitlement, as opposed to a value that Hewlett-Packard really typified, which is the contribution. What can I bring to the effort or to the team? In sum, the difference between these is, I like to call the difference between a deferred life plan and a whole life plan, or the lust for making money versus the lust for making meaning and money. Any entrepreneur who tells me that they're not interested in making money, I think is full of it. They're not telling me the truth. But you can do more than make money. I think it's the difference between achieving success in your life or success in significance, or as Carol would put it, finding a career with consequence. Now, what does leadership have to do with all of this? Well, it's just three things. Ideas are, relatively speaking, easy. And I'm a little intimidated to say that at a place like Rice, because this is a center, it's almost a temple of ideas, of innovation. But Colin Powell had something to say about that. He says this: innovation without execution is a hallucination. Innovation without execution is a hallucination. So when you have a powerful idea, I want to tell you, it doesn't do any good unless you figure out how to execute on it, how you figure out how to deploy it to the world, to change the world, which is why ideas are easy, execution's everything. But very few of us on our own can change the world. Brings me to the third point. It takes a team to win. Your ability to have your idea, your team's ideas, change the world will depend on the leadership that's applied to that team. And that's what this center is all about. And that's what my challenge today to you is about. It's just not going to be enough. It's not going to be acceptable for you to be an outstanding Rice student. If you do that, you will have squandered the place that your parents or loved ones provided for you, that the university granted you for you to come here. I'm here today, the center is here, to challenge you to do more and be more, even, dare say, at the risk of slightly lower grades. And that would be to engage with this center, engage in projects, figure out how you can be the most powerful leader you possibly can be. In the end, and in the next chapter of your life, I think you're going to be judged on your ability to listen actively and think critically. And above all else, you're going to be judged on your ability to communicate, to think and speak on your feet, to debate the merits of the great issues of our times, and to do so in small groups, in large groups, and in teams. A key measure of your success is going to be your skill in confronting a problem without confronting the person. So I can't interact with my good friend Scott Warren by saying he's a jerk. He's not, as it turns out. But the problem isn't with Scott the person, the problem is with Scott's idea. And over again, that skill in being able to confront an idea, confront a problem, without confronting the person, is going to be a really essential element of power, an element of your being able to engage a group and get them to move to solve the problems you want to solve. I think it's just super important for the leaders of our world, whether they're in profit or nonprofit organizations, whether they're working on a business or on a cause, to be good at recruiting people to the cause, to selling them, to hiring and firing that team, to inspire them, yes, to manage them, though management isn't the biggest deal, to be able to motivate and grow that organization with tough love. And as you develop your skills further, the ones you have already, I think you're going to be an ever better, ever more powerful leader. And through that role of leadership and through all of life, I think there's always extra points for humor. If I had any skill beyond the few that I've developed, it would be to be a stand-up comic. I just think that humor is a great lubricant, and it's a way to move people along. And there weren't any courses of that sort at Rice, so I hope the Rice Center for Engineering Leadership has one in stand-up comedy. My advice then for the students in the audience, I've alluded to this, is to always network, and not just for a job, but to develop personal and lifelong networks. Find a way to sustain and engage in your life at any time a couple of mentors. Stay in touch with these networks. A mentor. I want to stay on mentors for a moment. This is super important. I was just really fortunate that at many phases in my life there were one or two people, for some unknown reason, who were prepared to see me once a month or every couple of months for a lunch and talk about, I could tell them what was going on in my life or a career and get advice back from them. And that's a gift I could never repay to them. In fact, I dare say you've probably had people like this in your life, and the only way we can repay that is by mentoring others. If you don't have a mentor today, find one among the faculty or the grad students, and then reach out to one outside that community. And I think you'll be better for it, and you can be better for others. I, for one, favor that in your work, whether nonprofit or profit, you find positions with a lot of external contacts. And that doesn't come naturally to an engineer. Engineers innovate, they solve problems on computer terminals or in labs. Get externally focused and engaged, because that's where the action really is. I certainly encourage you, wherever you choose to work, to take risks. It's very true, to ask permission is to seek denial. And I think it would be much better to try and fail or try and succeed and then let the authorities catch up with you later on. This is very important, I believe. Your integrity is a binary state. It's like sand that you hold in your hands. And if you ever spread your fingers apart with respect to what's the truth, there's no way you can get that back. Somebody once quipped, the great thing about telling the truth is they don't have to remember what they said before. They can just stick with the truth all along the way. I was recently interviewing a candidate for a really important job position, and then he was to go on to interview with some other people in the organization. He disturbed them, and he came back and tried to explain what happened, and he lied to me and one of my partners about it. So we walked him out the door. If you take nothing away from this conversation, it's that your integrity is one of the most important things you have, and I'd cherish that and never let it go. Let me try to wrap this up here. Life's long. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Get really clear about what your priorities are. David knows that I spoke about this at the commencement exercise, which I was really honored to do. And I'm real clear about what my priorities are. They're my family first, and then my partners who I work with second, and then the clients, whoever your clients are. They may be your students if you're a teacher. They're the CEOs of the companies I'm working with. That's third. And then the fourth is the new with a little bit of time for community service. And I'm kind of a Nazi about time, so I look at my time every month. How many hours did I spend on those things? Did I get home for dinner 20 nights a month by 6:30? So I could try to be the best parent I could be for a teenage daughter who thinks we're both over the hill. Whatever your priorities are, get clear about them. Write them down now. If you don't know what they are, think about them, and then make sure the most valuable thing in your life, your time, maps into those and supports them. I think in the end, the question is, how are you going to measure your success in the significance of your life? And I suggest that's based on your priorities. What I'd like to do now is turn to some of these great topics you put on the board, comment on those, and then take some more questions from you. I won't be able to cover them all. I think a place I'd like to start is with this topic of social media and search, or the next big thing. And I believe that right now we're at a really extraordinary moment in time, the beginning of a really enormous third wave of innovation. Why a third wave? Well, my perspective on this is just my lifetime, but in the 1980s there began a first wave, and that was the invention of the microchip and the personal computer. I'll never forget how excited Scott and I were when we saw the first Macintosh and how Rice was a charter school and we had to have these powerful machines. Well, from 1980 through 1995, for 15 years or so, a lot of the really fantastic things that happened in the economy, in people's individual power and potential, came about because of the microchip and the personal computer. Then around 95, something funny happened. A 21-year-old kid from the University of Illinois had hacked together something with 6 of his buddies called Mosaic. He moved to Silicon Valley. He said, I'm going to commercialize this web browser. Right around the time Microsoft woke up and put TCP as a stack inside their operating system instead of an external add-on. Netscape sprung on the world in, I think it was November of '94, and about 20 million copies of it were downloaded before the end of the year. And the internet, which had been around for a while, came alive. For those of you Rice students here, you probably can't imagine a time without that point-and-click picture thing. But I think there's very little argument that that second wave of power, innovation, communications, and capability began with the browser and has moved us forward to great prosperity for the last decade and a half, to 2010, where we are today. And I believe we're right now experiencing the beginning of a third great wave. And that's the wave that takes the mobile phone. I wish I had my iPhone with me. This amazing device, these smartphones, these devices that know who you are, where you are. They're broadband. They're connected at all the time. They're programmable. They're in your pocket. This is a remarkable innovation, and it's going to allow us to reimagine and recreate the world, all the world's applications and services, with the perspective and the lens of people, that's social, the social networks, and location, based on where you are. So it's a very, very exciting time. The early evidence of it is a phenomenon like Facebook, which in just a few years has 500 million people connected to it. Games and services built atop Facebook. Today, 35 million people are going to play Farmville. And that's one of just 10 social games. We're going to see services like questions and answers all built on these social networks. And they're going to be aware of where we are. So I like to say that any business or service or institution that doesn't have a social strategy and doesn't have a strategy to exploit location is going to be in trouble. They need one. They'll be vulnerable to disruptors, just like the internet disrupted people in its first great phase. A great way to think about this is the way that Steve Jobs has, one of my heroes. And I think he's pioneered the application economy. The application is the new television episode. People spend about 20 minutes on the typical application on an iPhone through the course of a day. That application includes commercials, ads. It includes commerce, includes entertainment or games. And it's a very rich kind of media. So I think rethinking the world as an economy of applications and services is a very big thing. Social media relates right to that. It's quite interesting that what Facebook did when they recently did a composition of their like network and friends likes against Microsoft's search network, didn't get a lot of search traffic didn't get a lot more search traffic for Google, but I think that's just because it's for the first try. I think we're in the very early innings of search. It's not nearly personal enough. It's not nearly precise enough. It's not nearly as useful as it can be. And I think social networks will enable that. There was a question here about leadership having to do with the leadership skills as they apply to social outreach. And I wish to say here that I'm really awed by entrepreneurs. My definition of entrepreneurs is they do more than anyone thinks possible with less than anyone thinks possible. Entrepreneurship, more with less. When we think of entrepreneurs, we think of Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or some tech entrepreneur. Well, I want to tell you that entrepreneurs are much more than that. It's become more accepted in our language that there are, in fact, social entrepreneurs who measure their success by their impact on lives or communities as opposed to the value of their stock price. I think there's also policy entrepreneurs, great risk takers who will risk their political future with less resources than anyone would have thought possible to cause great change. There's education entrepreneurs. We've witnessed that here in Houston with the KIPP schools and their rapid growth. So my response to the question about leadership is I think successful entrepreneurs must be leaders, and that leadership is a bigger notion than entrepreneurship. I think a very natural way for you as engineering students to express, strengthen, and develop your leadership is to say, okay, I'm going to go do that as an entrepreneur. Probably a tech entrepreneur, but not necessarily so. You can have leaders in organizations that are not entrepreneurial. You have leaders in the Army. I think no one would declare that the Army is an entrepreneurial organization. It's an incredibly disciplined, organized, effective organization. But that's my perspective on entrepreneurs in social outreach. How has entrepreneurship changed in the last 10 years? Well, I'm going to pick just one part of entrepreneurship, which is internet entrepreneurship. And undisputably, in the last 10 years, the resources that it takes to start a new internet startup are a lot less. You don't have to buy any computers. You can go to my buddy Jeff Bezos at Amazon Web Services, and he just announced 2 weeks ago, he'll give you the compute time and the storage time for free to get started. So that's a dramatic change, and the tools have gotten so much more powerful that you can build a new service more rapidly. Most people building them on open source tools. Yesterday I was at Twitter. The whole Twitter system is being re-architected, thank God, using open source tools and open source technology, and they need to, because in the last 60 days they've added 30 more million users on this, not social network, but information network. So less capital, better tools. I think entrepreneurs are better. When they come to see me now, they've done a lot more homework. They've used the web. They've talked to other mentors. And so because there's this change, the start of this third wave, it's a more exciting time now than ever before to start a new company or to pursue a new idea. I'm going to skip over 3D for display. Maybe we can handle that later on. How about RICE and the role that RICE's engineering societies have to play? You know, I don't know a lot about RICE's engineering societies, so is there somebody here who feels expert on that would care to answer the question from within the audience? What's the role that RICE engineering societies ought to play in leadership and entrepreneurship? Anybody want to take that one for the audience? Yes?
There's a lot of opportunities. What I found during my RICE experience is that it really allows the student to get outside the classroom, think outside the box. You know, we're always taught, but really as a mechanism to which to leverage our ability to go out to the community, give back through the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, the Society of Women Engineers. We have the Engineers Without Borders that goes international and provides an impact on that end. We have Designing with RICE Engineers for Achievement through Mentorship. You know, all these different areas where you have like a niche market, and like you've noted, you know, really focuses on the entrepreneurship that, you know, are being taught in a RICE course through the curriculum may not easily provide.
Right. We refer to that as getting outside the hedges when I was around here, but that sounds like a really terrific thing to do. Let's see. How about green? Let me offer a perspective on green technologies. This isn't just a passion of mine, though I got turned on to it when my I guess she was 16-year-old daughter, Esther, after watching Al Gore's movie, came home to a dinner conversation. We were talking around the table with my friends, debating whether or not global warming was real, and most people agreed except Jim Barksdale, who wasn't quite sure it was going on, but it wasn't necessarily man-made. And then we turned to Esther, and Esther said, "Dad, I'm scared and I'm angry." She said, "Your generation created this problem. You better fix it." And for those of you who've been parents, I had no idea what to say about that. It stopped me in my tracks, and I started to learn about this field, and so did my partners. And it turns out that the science of the small, nanotechnologies, the ability to mess with the metabolic pathways of yeast or E. coli, said that finally we had the tools, the technology to invent at scale solutions that would get us lower carbon, more sustainable ways to achieve what everybody wants in life, right? Clean water, clean power, the ability to have a healthy lifetime. This is undeniable, and the pressures on the planet that come from globalization and urbanization are extraordinary. The national academies say that the largest single trend on our planet is that between now and 2050, 2 billion more people are going to move into cities. That's the equivalent of creating 10 Manhattans every year. And all those are going to be built in Asia. So if that's not a wonderful engineering problem, I don't know what is. What I found are the keys to addressing this problem are really three. One is policy. We have got to get, if the world's got to lower its carbon emissions by 2050 to 20% of what they are today, I want to tell you the developed world, our world, has got to get to zero. Absolutely, we've got to get to zero. And we do not have the innovation or the technologies that would allow us to have a zero carbon economy. We haven't invented them. And to get that done, we've got to take the miserably low level of R&D out of the United States government in clean energy from $5 billion to $16 billion, roughly, give or take a few billion. Americans right now spend more on potato chips every year than we do on clean energy R&D. And we spend $32 billion a year on healthcare. Well, healthcare and energy are pretty much the same size of the economy. The utilities don't do any research and development. With great respect for our oil companies, they don't spend any money on R&D, less than 1%. We got to get that innovation going, and it's only going to be funded by federal resources. At MIT, over a third of the faculty and grad students want to work on energy innovation. The sum total of their federal funding in R&D is less than $150 million a year. So more R&D is going to be essential. We also need innovation right here and right now. We need entrepreneurs to believe and come forward with plans so that we get what I like to call a lot of shots on goal. I would like to see a dozen well-funded ways to make renewable fuels from smarter bugs. This is a certified biodiesel fuel from a company called Amyris that went public a month ago. That's a really good thing. When they, out of UC Berkeley, synthetic biology, when they go public, it inspires others to do the same. We need a dozen shots on goal to make really cost-effective wind. This is a wind turbine as opposed to a propeller whose design achieves is 3 times the Betz limit in the form of the energy it can extract from a moving volume of air, causing them to believe that they will have a levelized cost of electricity at around 5.3 cents per kilowatt hour, which would be extraordinary. That would bring it to coal prices if in fact they do achieve that. Hard work, unproven, but another example of energy innovation from startups. The third component that's needed, I think, to get us to this new low carbon future is smart policy. And I'm sorry to report on that front we failed. I think President Obama, who I'm a huge fan of, and Rahm Emanuel made the wrong choice when they prioritized healthcare insurance reform over energy. We got a bill through the House. It had lots of problems, an energy bill, but we couldn't get through the United States Senate in the last session. a comprehensive energy strategy for our country. I like to say that America's energy strategy is nothing more than the sum of all lobbyists. We haven't had an energy strategy that makes any kind of sense for our country for a long, long time. The president hasn't given up on this. It's always been the case it's got to be done in a bipartisan way. I think whether or not we can get it done in the next Congress is going to turn on a political calculus by both parties. Will the opposition party conclude it can make more progress, gain more points in power by opposing things? And will for example, the Democratic Party conclude that it can build more political strength since a lot of its moderates were thrown out of office by going back to its base in a hard way? I'd love to be optimistic about this. Maybe I'll stop there and say I think those are the three ingredients that we're going to need so America can compete in the next great global industry. The internet's a fabulous thing, but after 15 years, it's about $1 trillion economy and about 1.2 billion people are on the internet. Let me tell you that energy, the devices, the generations of it, the uses of it, is a $6 trillion worldwide economy. 4 billion people use electricity, and every part of that infrastructure has got to be replaced to get to a low-carbon future. That's the task before us, and it's going to be great work for great innovators and engineers for a good long time to come. I think we have some time now for some more questions. I'd be grateful if the runners with the mics had come out, and let's do one more round of what we did before. Name, topic. If you just run right away with a mic to anybody who has a question, and I'd prefer questions from female engineers. Yes. Okay, prepare for disruption is what I've written. Next question, please.
My name is Vic. Sorry.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I'm Leslie. I'm a junior mechanical engineering student, and I wanted to know if you think that we can teach leadership here at Rice.
Oh, that's a really great question. Can it be taught at Rice? All right. Yes.
It's Vic, and I'm just wondering, opposed to creating more energy, what about just changing people's lifestyle? Is it about like
change consumer behavior? If we all stopped eating beef.
Yeah, just not taking more than what we need, and just reduce the desire for happiness.
Yeah. No, that's a deep topic.
Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was in
Name, please.
Rebecca.
Is your mic on, Rebecca? Okay, good. Okay, let's go.
So my question is, I've been in Dr. Emery's seminar and it's been a great experience, and I want to know, in your opinion, what is the world's biggest problem right now?
Okay, for those of you, if that mic's not working, the question is, what is JD's opinion about biggest problem? Next.
Hi, my name is Win, and I have a question about what do you think a role of engineers in making policies regarding like energy source talking about and other like technology?
Role of engineers in policy, making policy, right? And technology is what I heard. Yes, ma'am. Name,
my
please.
name is, I don't think this is on, but my name is Santa Cruz Webb. I'm not an engineer, but I married one, so I'm a pediatric oncologist.
I feel sorry for you.
Yeah. If you know,
I really feel sorry for you.
I'm a pediatric oncologist, and there's been some editorials recently about the rising healthcare costs. And we've been charged with trying to treat cancer for $1 a day. Do you think that will be possible in the future? And what role will engineering play in helping us treat cancer for only $1 a day?
Wow. Great question. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Hello.
Omar, yes, ma'am.
I'm Andrea Pinto. I'm a freshman in bioengineering. And I was wondering what you think about like new technology like webcams automatically in laptops and like Gmail kind of reading your emails and putting ads based on that. How do you see that affecting like privacy or our way of life? And also cell phones, like I feel like people are always watching me or knowing where I am. So yeah.
Yeah, well, they are.
Hi, my name is this on? Hi, my name is Emmy Chang. I graduated in 2002, so I'm an electrical engineering alumni. I had you mentioned two things that were very interesting: is educational entrepreneurs and mobile phones. What are your thoughts on mobile phones and education, and as we move forward with a mobile education environment?
As entrepreneurs and mobile. Okay, why don't we take a pause there and let me see what I can do with these, and then maybe then I want to let everybody be able to go, and I can stick around and do some more questions if you want. Can leadership be taught at Rice? I don't think so. I don't think you learn about business in business schools. I don't think you learn about leadership in leadership schools. These domains, for example, business and leadership, are incredibly important. And I could be wrong about this, and I know the head of the Jones School is here, but I think what you learn about in business school is the language of business. You learn about a framework for understanding business. And when you've done that successfully, and that's no easy thing to do, then when you do business, you're going to do it better and faster. You'll learn faster there. I think you learn about business in business. I do think you can learn engineering in classrooms, but you don't really get to be a great engineer in classrooms. You learn that by doing. I think the same is true of leadership. You can learn about leadership at Rice, but the best way to learn to be a leader is get a framework, get a language, find a mentor, and go out and try and lead and fail. And it's okay to fail. But if you don't do a personal assessment saying, here's where I am in my comfort zone. I can speak before a group of 4, but I'm terrified about talking in front of 200 people. Is that an important skill? And then how am I going to develop it? Remember what I said, that slide I put up about great leaders? That's really woven into the understanding of what the mission of Rice's Center for Engineering Leadership is. So I hope that's a helpful question, and I could be wrong. I know we have a department that teaches leadership at Rice in some courses, and I think that's probably a model of how leadership works. And I also could be completely wrong, because I don't know what they do. What's the role of engineering and technology in policy? You know, we've got Neil Lane here. You have him at Rice, and he is an expert on this topic. He's forgotten more about it than I'm ever going to know. I believe it's really important. I think it's a big national disadvantage that America's leaders are lawyers. And I love lawyers. Some of my best friends are lawyers. One of the best business advisors I have in Silicon Valley is an engineer and a lawyer. I don't find very many people who have those skills. And I think the rule of the law in the Constitution and our democracy is completely expressed in laws, and it's vital. I just envy the fact that China's political leaders are all engineers and generally graduates of Tsinghua University. So I challenge at least a few of you, as I was speaking with President Lebrun earlier today, to build a career out of engineering and the law, and not so you can prosecute patent cases, but rather so that you can help craft the kind of policy that our nation and the world's going to need. It's extraordinary that a majority of the people elected to Congress into new positions are climate deniers. They don't believe global warming is occurring. That's a really sad state of affairs. How are we going to make wise policy choices about what I believe, I'm going to go to another question here, is the biggest single problem we have on the planet? You know, this is not a problem that's going to threaten life on Earth. It's just going to threaten human life on Earth. That is what we're going to do about the path we're on, which I think is to irreversible, catastrophic climate crisis. The people who are going to be worst hurt by this are going to be about 100 million people in Africa. They're going to die. They're going to starve. And the reason they're going to starve is because of climate crisis. And they are the people who had the least to do with causing this problem. They're going to be hurt the worst from it, and they're least capable of doing anything about it. And that's why Bill Gates, in a really impressive move to me, added to his agenda, which has been all lives are created equal. He's going to go to work on poverty and disease in a really scalable way. He said, I'm going to start talking about energy because cheap, abundant energy correlates with a really high standard of living, more than anything else. But the path that we're on right now is going to mean we can't grow crops in Africa. And so tens of millions of Africans are going to die unless we respond to my daughter's challenge, which was our generation's creating this problem. What are we going to do to go fix it? I'm hopeful but not optimistic on the course that we're on right now. I think we've got 10, maybe 15 years to bend the curve and start turning down on the exponentially increasing CO2 emissions. We're tossing CO2 in the atmosphere 70 million tons a day, like our atmosphere is some kind of free open sewer. And it's not. We know what the consequences of this are. It's just they're going to be so far down the road, it's hard to develop public will to deal with it. China has prioritized lowering its energy intensity. The European Union has adopted a cap and trade system. It's only in America that we've decided that cap and trade is a dirty word. Any moves to make dirty energy more costly than clean energy or an energy tax. This is a really baffling situation for me. I think we're going to put a price on carbon. We will tax dirty energy in the end. I think we're just going to do it too late. I want to be hopeful. The engineer in me always hopes there'll be a breakthrough technology solution, solid state storage, not chemistry storage, but physics, supercapacitors. An order of magnitude higher energy density, an order of magnitude lower cost. That could really make electric vehicles practical, that could lower the cost of the grid. That would be one such breakthrough. And I see a lot of these going on. But the problem with this big challenge, I think, is speed and scale. Speed and scale, scale and speed, speed and scale. People say we need a Manhattan Project or an Apollo mission. That stirs the voters, but it fails miserably to convey the scope of what's got to be done. The Apollo mission, translated to today's dollars, I think was about a $70 billion program. I mean, my number's a little wrong there. In fact, I'm sure I have them wrong. It was a much smaller program than that involved a single agency of a single government. For us to get the world's economic activity, human activity to low carbon is going to involve every government, every city, every state to rebuild and reuse how it is that we use energy. So this is I hope you're inspired by this, not depressed. It's a great challenge. It's an important piece of work. I'm not saying that it's more exciting than the internet or synthetic biology or figuring out how to treat cancer for $1 a day. Everywhere you turn, there's opportunity. I just think that's the one that is going to be hardest to correct if, in fact, if it's visited upon us. I'm about 3 minutes over my time, so I think I'll close on privacy. One of the CEOs I got to work with for a long period of time, Scott McNealy, who started and built Sun Microsystems, he was pretty outrageous. He would call Microsoft software a great big hairball. He referred to Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer as Beavis and Butthead. I mean, he was just... It embarrassed me to say these kinds of things. He was very blunt on privacy. He said, privacy, forget it. You got a Visa card right now? They know where you are. They know what you're buying. They haven't signed a privacy statement with you. They can use that information, anonymized any way they want, and they do. There's something about the internet and its closeness, its reality, its response time, its immediacy, that's the word I want, that make violations of privacy there more concerning. And I think every internet company will tell you the same thing. They will tell you that your data is your data, and they care a great deal about privacy. I think this is an area for which there are not easy answers, because we all want websites to recognize us when we appear there, and we're going to use cookies to get that thing done. And if you believe my view that we're in a third great wave of innovation based on who you are in where you are, and your relationships with others, this social mobile revolution, how are you going to realize that without knowing who you are and where you are and some kind of privacy information? So we will demonstrably get better services, more relevant ads, better applications to you because we know that about you as opposed to you being unknown. Google has a great big goal to get more people to check in, to log in, to know who they are, because search can be better. So I think there's going to be mistakes made, there's going to be give and take. My friends at Facebook, Zuck in particular, is always going to push the envelope because that's the way he is, and he wants to try to do it. And I think it's going to be very good. I think we'll settle with a happy medium that's a balance between privacy and better services. I'm very mindful of running over time, so I will offer this. I think our dinner is at 6. Or there's a reception outside starting at 6, right? Starting right now. So, okay, here's the deal. If you want to continue any part of this conversation, you can write down my email address, which is jdoerr, Jdoerr, at kpcb.com. And if you will email me the names of the 3 books that have changed your lives, that appeal to you the most, I will email you back my 3 books, and I'll try to answer whatever question you have online. Congratulations on launching this great new center, for coming here. I hope leadership matters to you more now than it did an hour ago. And I think you've got a great opportunity to build something distinguished at Rice, important for you and for the world to admire that. Thank you very much.
This program is protected by a copyright and may not be redistributed in whole or in part without the express written consent of Rice Digital Media Services.